Good evening, guys. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hey, Adam G. Belated Merry Christmas, everyone. And tonight I have a very special guest. Yes, and my Miss Earth USA 2022 live chat series is still ongoing. And tonight I have a very special guest. She's another delegate who you should really meet because let's learn from her story and background as how to she was able to convert her love for the arts into something more meaningful and purposeful for the environment. So here she is. I'll bring her out. Please say hello to Miss Earth, South Carolina 2022, Savannah Bethea. Good morning over there, Savannah.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's 10 p.m. here in Manila, Philippines, but I'm not yet willing to hit the bed because I'm just stunned by who I am seeing right now on my screen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so how's your Christmas so far? How are you spending the holiday season so far there in South Carolina?
Well, I really enjoyed my Christmas. It was very relaxing, not much going on. I'm kind of staying to myself right now. I leave for competition on January 2nd. And of course, we're still in the middle of a pandemic with an evolving COVID variant. So I don't want to risk getting anyone else sick and, of course, not being allowed to compete. So I'm being very safe and kind of staying by myself this Christmas, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed like there are additional requirements for you girls to do just to be able to in order for you to leave your your state before coming to your host state next week, like all these mandatory, you know, booster shots or even RT-PCR test.
Yes, we have to get a test um, no more than 72 hours before arrival. We also have the option to get tested upon arrival. So, we're going to be safe. We're going to make sure that everyone is, clear on their test so that we're not infecting anybody. Of course, we're going to be socially distanced. The Miss Earth USA directors are amazing. Of course, they put the girls and our health first. And I'm really confident that we're going to be able to do this in a really safe and responsible way. But of course, we have to follow all of the precautions, and I'm doing my best to make sure I'm following them to the T.
Yes, and it's nice that the Miss Earth USA is mindful of the limit or the number or the duration of the entire pageant as it's only happening for only 1 week.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the rate of you guys infecting one another will be very low. No, it's just my opinion. Everything will be cramped within that 1 week. So before we start, talking more about your advocacy and your background, can we greet some of our followers who are tuned in? Ralph Sambat is saying hi to you. Hello and good morning, Adam and Savannah. And Linnell is also watching. Hi, Adam. Hi, Savannah. Thank you, Linnell, for watching. So, you know, to be honest, now that I'm looking at you right now, let me let me zoom your beautiful face for the benefit of our viewers. There. You kind of look like, I don't know if you know her. You kind of look like Nia Sanchez. You know Nia Sanchez, Miss USA 2014, and a bit of
I
Sandra Bullock.
That's the one I get all the time. I get Sandra Bullock all the time. That's the number one celebrity I'm compared to. When I was younger, I got Anne Hathaway. But when you said, you know who you look like, and then you said Mia Sanchez, I was like, oh, I totally thought he was going to say Sandra Bullock, and you finished with that. I can't fully remember what Mia looks like, but after our interview, I'm going to check her out.
Yeah, she's Miss USA 2014 and Miss and who eventually became first runner up in Miss Universe the same year. So yeah, have you been this so gorgeous since your childhood days? Since
Gosh,
childhood.
I don't know. I think I was a pretty cute kid, but my looks have definitely changed, as everybody's does, when they go from teenager to adult. But I definitely think it took some learning about makeup and hair and how to style myself. And also growing out of my awkward phase as a teenager. I think we all went through one of those. So I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say I've always looked this way at all. It definitely took a little bit of growing up.
I'm interested to know about that awkward phase. How was it like growing up during your childhood days?
Gosh, I was so dead set on being as bizarre and weird as I possibly could. As an artist, I'm sure you have artist friends who are a little bit out there. Um, I would try all these different styles. At school, I got made fun of because I chose to wear the weirdest clothes, and I thought I was so fashionable and fashion forward. Looking back on those pictures, I was a train wreck. I mean, I was just putting together the craziest outfits, but it takes doing that to kind of express yourself and develop your style.
Yeah, true. I also went through the same phase. Yeah, trying to fit in, doing all these things to make you look cool and not to succumb to peer pressure,
Yeah.
right, within your classmates. And you come from South Carolina, and I've never been there. Every time I go to the US, it's only LA and New York for me, the big cities. I've never tried going provincial or, and what I only know about your state is how beautiful it was in terms of how Nicholas Sparks would usually describe it in his novels.
I love that you are so familiar with Nicholas Sparks. Yeah, he really helped put a lot of towns in South Carolina on the map. If you do ever decide to come to South Carolina, I really suggest you start with Charleston. That's where a lot of the Nicholas Sparks books takes place. It's gorgeous, it's historic, the buildings are beautiful. And in my state, there's, we call it Southern culture because we are in the South of America. And it's all about being hospitable and kind and using manners and welcoming in people when they visit. And I love that part of our culture. But it's absolutely gorgeous here and so diverse. We have oceans, we have the mountains, we have swamps and flatland. You can really see it all if you come to South Carolina.
One of my all-time favorite movies is A Walk to Remember by Mandy Moore, and I kept watching it over and over again when I was younger on VHS. So I wonder, is it really like that in South Carolina? And was the movie, was the book setting in North or South Carolina? But I forgot. I just love the laid back, idyllic nature that setting provided for the movie as compared if the movie was set in New York or in LA. So it has just this quiet, your state has just this quiet charm,
Yeah, it really
where
does. And it does really look like that in a lot of areas. Of course, you have some towns that are kind of just a lot of buildings and cities, but in almost every town, you can go outside the city limits and you've got the country space, and it's really diverse. Like in some of the movies you've watched with Nicholas Sparks, we have the big oak trees and the magnolia trees with the Spanish moss hanging down that everyone loves so much. That really is in a lot of areas. There's like for me, the town I grew up in was very country. It was a lot of farmers.
yes,
So
countryside.
yeah,
Yeah,
so for
that's
me growing up, climbing a magnolia tree, having a picnic by a pond, it sounds picturesque, but it really was how we spent our time. Unfortunately, in a lot of those gorgeous small country towns, there isn't much to do, but it gives you a reason to get creative and get out in nature and kind of enjoy the simple things and not always need to be so entertained by media or a mall or something modern. You really kind of go back to your natural roots and spend time just appreciating how beautiful where you grow up is.
wow. I could already imagine you communing with nature or developing your love for nature as early as probably 10, 9, 8.
Gosh,
Yeah.
my whole
Wow.
life. So we have a family farm, and we would spend every weekend out there. So as far back as I can remember, my dad would drive down this dirt road to the farm. He'd open the truck door, and we'd all hop out and just go running, climbing trees, playing games. playing in the water. So as early as I can remember, I've been surrounded by nature. And of course, when you spend that much time in something, you really develop an attachment and you want to protect that.
Oh, that's really great. I could imagine all these things that you're doing on a walk to remember plus Smallville setting. Wow. Yeah. Sorry. I've never been to South Carolina, so I'm just trying to picture
Well,
whatever
please
Hollywood
come. I'll
movie
show you
or TV's
around.
or TV. It's just quite near from New York, right? How many hours is South Carolina away from New York by
Well, I'll
bus?
put it this way. My uncle lives in New York, and when I was a kid, my dad decided that instead of flying to New York, we would drive all the way there. And it took us 2 days, and we had to stop at a hotel in the middle. So
Oh,
it's pretty far. So New York is at the top of the country. South Carolina is almost at the very bottom on the east side. So we're pretty far away. I think that's why the culture is so different. We're a good minute away. But, if you are, lucky enough to be able to afford a plane ticket, which isn't always easy, it's not a long flight at all. I think it's like 3 hours. But if you're driving, you got to have a couple of days set aside for that.
that's great. Yeah, one day I'll come to your state. Yeah, and not just go to New York all the time. And as I read your bio, you took up liberal arts in school. What made you take up that course?
Well, I was starting to tour colleges and figure out where I wanted to go, and I'd gone to this small school in my country town that had absolutely no art program. We just had the basics: your math, your English, your science. We didn't have any electives or anything fun. So I spent a lot of my time when I wasn't doing gymnastics painting and creating art on my own. And I toured Converse College, where I ended up attending, and I saw their art department. This was the first time I was exposed to, huge machinery used for printmaking and a room full of easels where a bunch of artists could get together and create together. I didn't even have another friend that made art. So I started seeing all this space and resources to make art with. And I was like, I have to come here. And it happened to be an all women's liberal arts school. And I was a little bit nervous about going to an all women's college. I was worried, what if it's catty? What if the women don't get along? But we really had that sisterhood vibe. We really learned how to respect each other as women and communicate in a healthy way. And that's really translated to pageantry and helped me build friendships and work with women in a really respectful way. But once I saw all that and I realized how well I was going to fit into the scene, I knew that that's the college I needed to go to. And of course, art being such a passion of mine, studio art seemed like a natural fit to be my major. And I'm really glad I chose it because I learned so much, not just about art and myself, but in the environment ended up tying into what I learned about art. And that really helped me approach the way I thought about the environment in a different way, and how everything we participate in, everything you can think of in some way ties back to the environment, either how we're not treating it the way we should, or either how it's good for the environment, or maybe the materials came from the environment. And so we need to protect those resources so that we can continue to have those natural materials to make works with.
Exactly, exactly. And it's nice how you, yeah, as I said in my intro earlier, how you discovered your love for nature with something that you love to do during your leisure time. I mean, yeah, just imagine, you're painting something and then you realize the materials that you are using are something that you could really convert or repurpose or recycle
Yeah.
for a better use later on. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really that's I've never thought that you could repurpose something from out of painting or all those canvas paint or
Yeah.
those. I'm just really, yeah, I've never been a painter, I've never been an artist, so I wouldn't know, but I thought once you use something, you throw it right away, and then you buy another canvas or paint or acrylics, something for you to use on your another paint or
Well,
canvas.
that's where the kind of creativity comes into the environmental factor. I think combining creativity and the environment is so necessary because in order to create change, we need innovation. We need new ideas. We need things we've never tried before. And that means creativity and approaching things in a creative and unique way. But also, when you're in art school and when you're in college, you're broke and you have no money. And so you really have no choice but to start reusing things. And
But to
when
be
you're kind
creative.
of made to do it, and you end up doing it and it works out, you start seeing things totally different and you're going, everything around me has an initial purpose. It was designed for one reason. But I'm an artist and I'm a creative person, and that doesn't have to stop me. I can decide that this now has a new purpose. I can make whatever I want. That's the freedom in art that is so beautiful. So with painting, of course you can repaint your canvases. You make a piece of work that you didn't like, you don't have to throw out that canvas. You can paint it white and start over and add on top of it. And it's also really important the way that we handle, store, and dispose of our art materials because they can be done in a really responsible way. But if they're mishandled, they can be so detrimental to the planet. For instance, I'm an oil painter. So we work with mineral spirits. And if those mineral spirits were to be poured down a drain, they could get into the groundwater. And once mineral spirits are in our groundwater, they can never be separated out again. There is no technology that can get that mineral spirit out of the groundwater. And of course, that's what we shower in, that's what we drink. So and water is, aren't we like 70% made of water as human beings? Like we need that and we need it to be clean and we need it to be healthy. So I learned so much about that and how it's my responsibility as an artist that if I'm going to be using these materials to make sure I'm aware of what I'm using and the effects that they'll have on the environment if I mishandle them. And that was a really eye-opening thought. As I spoke to you, there was no art program when I went to college. So there was so much that I was hearing for the first time, and it was so exciting. And then what really got me thinking about repurposed materials and making new use of old things was when I started making sculpture. First of all, I got to learn how to weld, which was so interesting to me. I've always been an athlete. I've always loved to use my body and sweat and my muscles and get a little bit dirty. And painting is great, but sitting, here at an easel and painting for 3 hours, it can get a little it can get a little boring sometimes. You want to move around. So when I discovered sculpture, I was making art, I was using my body and my muscles, I was sweating. So it was kind of like I was combining a sport and art. And so once I initially learned to weld, I wanted to start creating my own sculptures. But the metal was so expensive, and me and the rest of my classmates really couldn't afford it. So we started taking group trips to the scrapyard and getting pieces of metal that other people had discarded and creating our sculptures from that. And that was the first time I was really introduced to the idea that you can take something that others view as trash and give it new use and new purpose. And so not only are you saving that trash and giving it a new use, you're preventing yourself from buying or purchasing something unnecessary. Because that's kind of a huge part of the problem, don't you think? The consumerism, constantly buying more, when we could instead make use of what we already have around us as often as possible. So that's really where that all started for me with sculpture and reuse, going to the scrapyard. And it's also so inspiring as an artist when you sacrifice a little bit of that control, and the lack of control meaning you have to work with what you find at the scrapyard. You don't get to design a piece and go, okay, I need this piece of metal at this size made of this exact metal. You got to work with what you find. And in that is so much creativity. I mean, you never know what you're going to find. I mean, I found like a unicycle with no wheel. Just the craziest stuff. And you see that piece, you get so inspired, and you create a piece of work that you never would have thought of on your own had you not repurposed that material. So it's great in so many ways for the environment and for you as an artist to challenge yourself.
I hope people will become more like you, be
Why?
mindful of their excess, how they could turn all these litter to something more purposeful. Like just how you just like I feel like this love for nature that you have has really changed your life for the good, such that you have adopted an advocacy that is also very similar in nature when it comes to repurposing and recycling things, which I think how Jeans for Teens came about. So can you tell us how uh, your advocacy Jeans for Teens come about?
Yes, absolutely. I actually love telling this story. So I'm 27 years old now, but Jeans for Teens is actually a project that I created when I was in high school. But it wasn't an environmental project yet. The original idea of Jeans for Teens was that I would collect quality, trendy, and fashionable denim to donate to teenagers in need in my hometown. Because I'd spoken with homeless shelters and foster programs, and they told me that a lot of people that are donating are really forgetting about the teenagers. The babies get a lot of things donated, the elderly get a lot of things donated, mothers and adults get things donated, but people would kind of let the teenagers slip their mind. So they had no donations. And we both talked about this with our personal style. It's so important as a teenager to have a personal style and be able to express yourself. You're really becoming who you are for the first time. You're making your own decisions and you're deciding how you want people to see you based on your clothing. And it's so important to teenagers. It was so important to me. And I wanted to be able to offer that. So I started collecting denim with kind of a guideline like, hey, if you're donating to the project, first of all, thank you. But please keep in mind that what you donate needs to be quality. It needs to be trendy, something a teenager would wear with pride and feel really good about themselves. If you wouldn't wear it, please don't donate it. Donate anything unwearable with too many holes or, has like, paint all over it. I mean, if it's paint in a cool, trendy way, that's great because sometimes holes and frays are just part of the fashion, but it needed to be wearable. And people understood, but in collecting all of this denim, I would sort it and I realized I had so much of it that I was not going to be able to donate to teenagers because the goal of it was to donate with respect. Respect the people that I am donating this denim to. And it wouldn't be very respectful to donate a piece of jeans where the pocket's fallen off, you know. So there was so much that I just was not willing to give to them because I thought, it's almost insulting to give this to a teenager and say, wear this. And that got me thinking, well, what am I going to do with all of this denim? I can't just throw it away. That seems so wasteful. And, moving forward and developing the project, I discovered an initiative called Blue Jeans Go Green. And that was created by a nationwide company here in the States called Cotton Incorporated. And it was the idea that you could go to the Levi's store or the Wrangler store and drop off a couple of pair of jeans that you had in your closet that you didn't need anymore. And they would turn that into sustainable home insulation and thermal packaging for food and pharmaceutical shipments. But I knew I was going to be collecting hundreds and hundreds of pounds, which ended up being more than 1,000 pounds. I'm close to a ton of denim, 2,000 pounds right now. Oh,
I have a question. Where do you store all these pants that you have been collecting? I mean, I assume can you keep everything in your house? Just that's just a question that came
I
up in my head while listening to your story.
I have basically sacrificed my kitchen. My kitchen is covered in a mountain of denim. And also, I still have some pickups left to do because the project ended up reaching 10 states. I've met so many people that took on the project. Schools took on the project. Churches, cheerleading teams. We have a program here in America called Keep America Beautiful that has affiliates in every state. And the state leader kind of creates affiliates in every county. So Keep America Beautiful got involved and helped me bring Jeans for Teens to county leaders all over the state of South Carolina. So a lot of people started collecting the denim in the name of Jeans for Teens that will then come to me where I'll sort it and either donate it or send it to the Blue Jeans Go Green initiative. So right now, my kitchen is almost totally full of denim. And I still have tons more to pick up after the pageant. But of course, I want to be safe with COVID. So I'm not doing my pickups until after that's over. But I am running out of space. I'll put it that way.
Not only that, you're doing this by yourself.
By
You have no
myself.
manpower to assist you
Nope, just
in
me.
collecting all these jeans. Huh? Really? Can you
Well,
handle
and
all of this?
the groups that I kind of enlisted, all the people I approached, like the church groups that I mentioned, but those are all people in towns very far away from me. I wanted it to be really meaningfully impactful. I wanted there to be a huge difference made from this project. I didn't just want to do a project and say that's enough. I wanted to see something really happen. And so to me, that meant growing the project. That meant getting more people involved. So that was a big part of what I did in working on this project, is trying to get as many people involved as possible. As far as running the project, as far as running Genes for Teens as a project, I do that by myself. But I can tell you I've enjoyed it every second of it. I've really found my passion in this. And this is something I'm going to keep doing for the rest of my life. And after the Miss Earth USA pageant is over, win or lose, I really want to turn Genes for Teen into an official nonprofit and help bring it to the rest of the country. It's in 10 states now, but I'd love to bring it to all 50 states and make people really aware of this project and it be a part of their yearly clean out. You know, when they clean up their house and do their spring cleaning, I want
Yeah.
people to automatically think of Genes for Teens, and that's something they think about and do every year. So it's a really big goal of mine to continue the impact of this project and continue the growth of it.
So in a way, you're listening to your advocacy. You're really advocating for sustainable fashion.
Sustainable fashion, but also responsible disposal. So I'm concerned about textile waste and how much we produce, but I'm also concerned about landfill diversion, meaning if it must be waste, is there a way to make use of that waste and keep it out of the landfill, divert it from the landfill? And that's what I think is so interesting. Denim, the production of it can be quite harmful for the environment. And there are companies that are creating new and innovative ways to create their denim that is much less harmful. But the good news about denim is cotton is one of the easiest materials to recycle. And that's what denim's made out of. So in taking a material that can be harmful to produce and then making sure that we're kind of counteracting that harm by making use of it that's positive for the environment is really important to me.
But yeah, but listening to you, uh, I'm glad that you're advocating it for its proper disposal. But minimize its how can we minimize its disposal when a lot of companies or a lot of people are into fast fashion, wherein they get into trends right away and they quickly discard or dispose all these clothes once they're already out of season. So, s- do
I
you
think
think, in a way, yeah,
I think, sustainable fashion should be your number one option if you have that luxury. If you can, sustainable products are often more expensive because they are higher quality and they're going to last you longer. In the long run, it's really not that much more expensive. And if you can afford that upfront, then that should be your first choice, researching what you're buying, who you're buying it from, and how it was produced. Are you purchasing a product that is going to last you for years, that you know you'll use a lot? Is the company that created it producing their products in an ecological manner? Those are important things to consider. So if you have that luxury, you have to buy sustainable as often as you can, because you're right, fast fashion is a big reason why textile waste is one of the biggest growing categories in landfills. We're producing massive amounts of clothing that do not last. And also the companies themselves, they overproduce far more than they actually need and end up throwing away tons of clothes they never even sold. So that's a huge problem because we're putting profit over the environment.
yes,
So I would love to see some regulations on that. But, as we talked about before, fast fashion is sometimes the only option for some people financially. There are some people who really have a very small amount of money that they have to make stretch, or parents that have to buy their children clothes for the year. So buying their child a pair of sustainable jeans that will last 4 years when their child is going to outgrow that pair of jeans in 6 months isn't feasible for them. And they've got to get that kid clothes for the entire year, but they have a small amount of money. So I really want to see companies come forward and create clothing that is inexpensive and also sustainable. And I know that's difficult, but I think with innovation and thought and really, considering people over profit, that's something that we can make happen. We need affordable, sustainable options for people because I don't ever want to demonize somebody that isn't participating in sustainable choices because they can't afford to. I don't think that's fair. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is if you can afford it, I think it's your responsibility to do the research and make those purchases. And if you can't, it's your responsibility to dispose of them properly.
do you think one way for us to do our research, or one because you say we have companies have to be inexpensive and innovative. Do you think as a consumer ourselves, do you think we have to be all the more knowing about the which fabrics we should buy that are more sustainable than the others, just so to educate consumers what we really should buy when it comes to sustainable fashion and in the long run protecting our environment?
That's an excellent point. We have so many artificial fabrics that are plastic based, are acrylic based, that are just not something that's ever going to be able to break down in a landfill. Most textiles already on their own take 200 plus years to break down in a landfill. And the issue with the textile waste is that when it does break down, it releases methane. And that greenhouse gas is more harmful than carbon, the greenhouse gas we're used to hearing about. So I think it's absolutely worth investigating for companies to look for ways to use natural fibers, fibers that are long lasting, but also can be reused or recycled after the life cycle of that piece of clothing is over. Responsible choices by companies like that are so necessary. And we also need to educate people about what fabrics are the most easiest to recycle and the most sustainable so that they can make sure when they're buying a piece of clothing, they're aware. Because knowledge is the most important thing. Something I really focused on is how important research is. I've learned that if you act without researching, then you could accidentally be contributing to the problem that you're trying to solve. Research should be your first step, and action should be your second. And I think that's so important. If everyone is educating themselves on the proper choices and companies are making an effort to make those choices available, that in itself could make such a huge difference.
You mentioned about natural fibers. Does that include cotton? Because the more I made the research about it before coming to this interview, and I realized in order for one to make a cotton T-shirt, it takes 10,000 liters of water just to make one.
Absolutely.
So
There needs to be, more environmental ways to go about that. Oh, sorry. Were you going to say something?
yeah, yeah. You were yeah. Okay, go on. I'll just say it later. Yeah.
There needs to be more environmental ways to go about that. I mean, we have put a man on the moon. I'm positive we can develop science that helps us create a t-shirt without using so much water. And I personally know that cotton, which is a huge crop here in South Carolina, it is so important to the state. They're doing a lot of things to make the growth of cotton use less water, use less pesticides, to make cotton a more environmentally friendly crop as it grows. And that's really important. But also with water usage in denim, the dyeing process is a really big contaminator. The dyeing process of denim has contaminated over 70% of Asia's lakes and rivers. And there are companies doing amazing things and innovative things to kind of combat that. For instance, once the jeans, when you put like a dye pattern on it or a bleach pattern or kind of distress it, that takes water and it takes chemicals. And that gets into the water in Asia and anywhere that they're dyeing the denim. But they're developing lasers that can actually create the pattern of a bleach stain or whatever trendy kind of distress look you want. Those lasers do not contaminate any water, and they're such a better environmental choice to creating those styles. And that's just one example of what fashion is doing to move forward. I'm really seeing a lot of industries' gears turning. Now, we haven't moved forward as far as I want, but I can really see an effort being made to try to change the way things are done and come up with the technology we're going to need to be able to produce clothes differently than how we have in the past. That's going to be more environmentally friendly.
So do you think we should because the reason why I brought up the cotton t-shirt thing is because I come from the Philippines. I live in the Philippines, and as we all know, our climate here is very tropical. So anything cotton is advisable to wear here. And now that you are telling us about it, I think should we be more particular with the cotton t-shirts that we should buy from now on in terms of checking out the labels attached to it, because you said earlier that there's a certain cotton fiber that is more environmentally friendly that is being produced uh, by manufacturers or companies with higher standards.
Um, I don't think it's a particular strain of cotton. I just think I've noticed in America and in my research and working with Cotton Incorporated that the cotton industry in America is making efforts to get away from the old way that they used to grow crops that are not as environmentally friendly. And they're really working to come up with new ways to get away from the chemicals that they use to keep the bugs off and to use less water and to waste less. I've definitely seen cotton farmers make an effort to be more environmentally friendly and more conscious in the way they produce it. Now, as far as t-shirts, I think that comes down to the company. The cotton is sold to a company who turns that into the fabric that's made into a t-shirt. So that's where I would angle my research when it comes to making sure that your company isn't wasting water and that you're buying a sustainable t-shirt. Look into that company and see, has that company made an effort to use some of these new innovative things that are coming out to make a t-shirt that uses less water? And if so, support that company. And if not, kind of get away from the other companies that aren't making an effort to improve the way they create clothing and make sure that it's done in an environmentally focused way.
True, true. Yeah, you know what? I'm learning so much from you. The things that I never pay attention to when it comes to buying clothes, because normally, if you'll ask my retail spending, let's say tomorrow, I like, here in the Philippines, my favorite store is Zara, and usually every year they would hold a sale annually. Twice a year, every January and June. January, which is like in a few days from now. So definitely by January 1, I would run to Zara, to purchase some discounted items for myself. But then I realize now as I'm talking to you, okay, I shouldn't really be purchasing more stuff from Zara, because if I want to contribute something for the environment, I have to practice sustainable fashionability. And one way of practicing sustainable fashionability is, one, check out do more research about the cotton or the materials that they use in that particular shirt. Or number two, don't buy at all.
Well, you have
And
more
just use
options
your
than
old
that.
clothes. Use your old clothes
You
as
have more
part of your
options than that.
contributions. Really? More
Yeah.
option?
Well,
Oh,
you
really?
can still go to Zara, but make sure you're looking at the material quality wise, longevity wise. Will this last you a long time? It doesn't always necessarily have to be produced super sustainably and eco-friendly. That's a bonus and that's the goal. Definitely try to go for that. But if you're making use out of that clothing for as long as possible, that's also a huge helping factor. If you can make a piece of clothing last twice as long, for example, from 1 year to 2 years, if everyone did that, that would cut down on such a massive amount of textile waste. So if you really, you're passing Zara and you just can't resist and you've got to go in and you really want a new outfit, just promise yourself you're going to make use of that outfit for X amount of years, for as long as possible. And also, instead of getting rid of the clothes you had before, donate them, sell them. And then also, the most fun option is thrift shopping. Do you like to thrift shop?
Yes, when I usually go there, my aunties would usually bring me to the Ross. No, not Ross. Those thrift shops, yeah, in San Diego. My auntie would take me to one, and I would really, be amused by the stuff that I can see there, that I can use it for myself at a cheaper cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love thrift shopping. I mean, that's where you find one of a kind pieces. That's where you find the most interesting and unique things. And oftentimes you find a lot of older clothes, vintage clothes. And vintage clothes used to be made a lot better. A lot of the artificial fabrics we use today did not exist even 40 years ago. So they used more natural fibers. So you have the option to not only reuse this piece of clothing, but it's a sustainable piece of clothing that when you're done with, is probably still going to be in good enough condition for you to sell right back to the thrift store or donate back to the thrift store and keep that in a life cycle. Thrift shopping is, to me, the most fun way to be environmental with your clothes, because all of those clothing could have ended up in a landfill. Instead, they're in this thrift store for a chance for you to hunt and find something interesting and reuse this piece of clothing. And like I said, doubling the life of a piece of clothing, tripling it, quadrupling it. If everybody did that, the amount of textile waste would be cut down by such a huge percentage.
I think it would be more beneficial for us to donate it to the landfill so that there will be more stuff that you can use for your for your uh jeans initiative, right?
Yeah, well,
Just
my whole
kidding.
goal is to kind of step in and avoid letting that textile end up in the landfill. I try to stop it from getting there. But I am also really interested in the waste that's in landfills, and how we can make use of it. I think it's so important to cut down on waste, but what are we going to do with all this trash we already have? I mean, landfills are huge, they're massive, and they're all over the world. What if we could find a way to take the trash that's in those landfills and make them useful? There are companies that are doing that. I even read this article that I found to be so inspiring and, most of all, really hopeful. And what this company did was they were a solar power farm. So, a bunch of solar grids, and it could power up to 536 homes, more than that, I think. So that's basically an entire small town, kind of like the one I'm from, all through solar power. And that solar farm was built on top of an old landfill. Now, before I read this article, I thought that once a piece of land became a landfill, it was ruined because of all the chemicals and the gases and everything breaking down there, that it's too contaminated to ever be made use of. But it's not. You can actually still, do something with it. They built this solar farm on top of it. So you've got environmentally friendly energy with solar power. You've got making use of a previously ruined piece of land, that landfill, and there is no deforestation required to create the solar farm because you're making use of the landfill. And I think that's so interesting. And that came about because somebody was innovative. Somebody didn't say, "Oh, that's ruined. That land's ruined. We might as well let's move on and find something else." They thought about it. They put the creativity in. They tried different things until something worked. And I'm really interested in finding more companies and encouraging people that have an awareness about engineering and science to create companies where we can actually make materials from our trash instead of making brand new materials.
Savannah Bethea for City Mayor of South Carolina 2024. Anyway, yeah, but listening to you, there's no doubt that, wow, you know, you really are very knowledgeable in what you are advocating. Right now, I only promise you to have a 30 to 40-minute conversation, but you talk about your project with so much enthusiasm and passion that led me to really get to know more about it, and in the process make me learn so much or question even my spending habits when it comes to shopping, retail shopping. Yeah, this is the kind of interview that this is the kind of interviews that I really live for. I'm really learning so much from my subject. So, as we talk more about it, talk more about your advocacy, your how you're purposing everything for more usage for the environment and into household stuff. I would also like to ask, do you think there would come a time that our world would achieve a zero waste fashion industry, considering that our fashion industry is one of the largest polluting industries in the world right now?
I think it's absolutely possible. I mean, the things that we can do with technology are absolutely astonishing. So I don't see why there's not a reason why we could not get away from all the waste in fast fashion and get to a zero waste fashion industry. I know that that's scientifically possible if we put in the work, but the problem is the greed of the companies. Are they going to be willing to maybe spend a little extra money? Maybe the cost of production goes up, but they're not hurting the environment as much. I can't see companies coming to that decision on their own without legislation requiring it of them. But I have to stay hopeful. We all have to stay hopeful, and we all have to keep asking companies to do what we want. They respond to us, especially with social media, YouTube, Facebook. I mean, we've seen how many movements a bunch of people can create. If you ask a company, if enough people are on Twitter bugging a company about something, they eventually do it. And we've kind of seen that happen with different people. So I think as long as we keep speaking up and letting companies know we want to buy sustainable fashion, We don't want to buy this. This is what we're looking for. And if we start giving our money to the companies that are doing that, even though some of these larger, less environmentally friendly companies may be greedy, their greed will lead them to environmentalism because they'll see that these sustainable companies are getting all of our money and they're going to want to get in on that. Now, is that ideal? No, I would love for them to create a more environmentally friendly company because they love the earth. But if we can't get them to do it that way, we can get them to do it because of their own greed by showing them how much money they can make off us if they just agree to make sustainable products and produce products in an environmentally friendly way. We have to be hopeful about that. So I would say, yes, I do believe one day we'll be 100% zero waste with the fashion industry because I just don't think it's helpful to think we'll never get there. It's better to be hopeful. It's better to believe in possibility.
Or like what you said. So do you think you would believe all these fashion brands saying that they would achieve going circular by 2030 in order to achieve that zero waste goal?
Do I believe them?
Yeah.
If they have made that claim, I'm going to believe them because, if they don't achieve that, if they don't meet that goal, they have a real PR problem on their hands. People are going to be upset. They're going to remember what was promised and see that it wasn't delivered and demand that they deliver what was promised. I think if a company is making that promise, I want to believe in them and I want to give hope to someone. Anyone that's speaking up and saying, I'm going to do my part for the environment, I'm going to give my faith to, and I'm going to believe in that. And I'm also going to hold them accountable if that promise is not met.
I think the reason why, there isn't legislation being made for that is because if once all these politicians would start crafting a law about it, then eventually they have to realize the impact it will generate on the bigger picture, which is hurting the global economy.
That's true. That's true. But I think we're getting to a point with, what's happening to our earth and how dire it is and how we're running out of time to where we're going to have to make some risks. I mean, I don't think it will matter that we have a less than amazing economy if we don't have an earth, if we don't have homes, if, my state of South Carolina is swallowed up by water because of global warming and the rising sea levels. And you mentioned 2030. By 2030, Charleston, South Carolina, the town I want you to visit so bad, could possibly be underwater, as well as Savannah, Georgia, as well as New Orleans, Louisiana. These towns are not only gorgeous and amazing and homes to millions of people, but they are a massive part of American history. They hold a lot of the information about our beginnings. So, I mean, people will be losing their home, their resources, their farms, their land, but we'll also be losing our history if we don't act sooner. So, I mean, we have to take it seriously and we have to kind of sacrifice some things for the
Yeah,
greater
I know.
good.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but I don't know if it's political will or what, or how these, or I don't know how could all these uh, multi companies get to develop social responsibility in the long term just to be able to, somehow solve the issue, right?
Yeah.
It's always about greed. It's always
Yeah.
about greed. Yeah, it
I'm
all
hoping
bottoms
that
down
just
to it.
pressure from us, if we speak up, we stand up and we put pressure on the companies, I'm hoping that'll make a big difference. If we can impact their bottom line because they're not producing environmentally friendly products, we might be able to get them to make a change.
I know when is the next elections in the US? Do you think climate change or all these issues related to the environment should be a number one, should also be one of the priorities that these politicians need to have an agenda or blueprint as to how they will try to tackle or solve it once they assume office or get elected for the position?
Absolutely. It should be our number one issue. I mean, like I said, we're at a point here where it's not like in the very far future, in 2 generations from now, we couldn't have an Earth. In my lifetime, we could have an unlivable Earth, or basically an Earth that is borderline unlivable, where we're all in this terrible predicament, possibly like in gas mass or cramped together because our, country is being slowly swallowed up by water as the sea levels rise. And it has to be put first, because if we don't, it doesn't matter. Healthcare doesn't matter. The economy doesn't matter. All of our rights aren't going to mean anything if we aren't alive to enjoy them.
Yes.
Everything takes place in the earth. So we have to take care of the earth so that we can have these other things. It
So you
doesn't
can
make
enjoy all these rights. As
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to dwell on all of these things, however important they are. They are so important. But if we dwell on them and then we just let the earth deteriorate, we might get to a point where we're like, finally, we figured it out. It's all fixed. And then, you know, too late, the earth's gone. So, I
yeah,
mean, it has to start with where we are. It has to start with our environment, because every single thing that we do have say on earth happens within the environment.
agree. There's a question here from Jel Lopez. Uh, he has a question for you. So, given everything that we've talked about so far, what important climate issue would you like to tackle as a Miss Earth candidate, as a Miss Earth USA candidate?
As a Miss Earth USA candidate, I've really been focusing on textile waste and landfill diversion, and also my initiative called Rethink Recycling, encouraging people to get creative with the way they recycle by making art. And then I've also been cleaning up a local nature preserve in my town of Spartanburg. I removed 400 pounds of litter, over 400 pounds of litter from the preserve by myself. Um, so I really want to expand those projects to a nationwide initiative instead of just statewide. I want the Textile Waste Project to go nationwide, and I'd love to expand to things other than denim. I want everyone to kind of adopt an area in their town like I did with Glendale Shoals and set a goal. My goal was to get out there once a month and clean up. It ended up being a lot more often, usually about twice a month, sometimes three. I would love to see an initiative started that encourages everyone to do that. I really, really want to get teenagers involved as much as possible. That's super important to me, because when I was a teenager, I was never approached about an opportunity to do my part in the environment. An adult had never come up to me and said, let me educate you about this. And here's an opportunity to do your part. So I really want to provide that to teenagers as well. If I am lucky to get past Miss Earth USA and go to Miss Earth, I really want to expand more on the landfill issues we talked about finding companies that can make use out of the materials we already have in the landfill. For example, you can make an entire road out of textile waste, like a road that you drive on, a normal road. Yeah, you can make bricks that you build houses out of textile waste. There's got to be other waste that we can make things out of instead of producing bricks, instead of, making asphalt roads. Let's use what's here. Just spin it on its head. Look at it at a different angle. Get innovative. There's answers in here. And people that know the science and the engineering can help with that. And my goal would be to kind of make that popular, help get that out into the media, make that a real conversation that's happening, so that these people can hear about this idea and use their talents and their sciences and their engineering to help me execute this, help make this a reality.
Wow. You know, I'm no engineering student and you never took up engineering as well, but the way you said it, like you can make roads out of just textile waste. Wow. It's my first time to really hear that. So wow. You know
The
what?
first
There's no
time I
the
heard it, that's what I said. I said, wow. I was like, can you imagine driving down a road of like Zara?
yeah,
Of like Zara clothes. I
yeah.
mean, I've never seen one in person, but I've seen pictures and I've read the articles about it, and I know that people are doing it. And it's really something that I would love to do if I win Miss Earth USA. I would love to build a road and call it Miss Earth USA Boulevard or Miss Earth USA Road. I think that would be so cool, because I would be making use out of a lot of textile waste, expanding past denim. But everyone that drove on that road, the entire time they're on that road, they're kind of being forced to think about textile waste, the environment, innovative ways to reuse materials. Anybody that sees the road or drives on it, that's automatically going to be in their head. So it kind of serves two purposes. We're making a road out of waste, reusing materials, and we're getting people thinking as they use the road itself.
Wow. Wow. I think you have to start that with your community and then let your local TV stations cover that, and as it gets picked up by CNN for all the world to see
Oh
the
gosh, that would be
sample model. Yeah. I
amazing.
mean, I'm sure if you would lead, if you would start doing that, initiate that that kind of uh, social campaign, people will
Yeah.
take notice. I'm really hopeful about it because it's something new, it's something innovative, and most importantly, it's green, which is what we need nowadays, especially at this time of climate change,
Yeah.
fossil driven climate change. Anyway, you know what? I am learning so much from you. And as much as I want to talk to you longer, I have to end this. I had such a blast
Me
chatting with
too.
you. And we're not just chatting about mundane stuff. We're talking about real important issues affecting our lives.
Exactly.
Can you
That's why I
believe
love the
it?
Miss Earth USA system so much, the Miss Earth system, because it gives us a chance. I mean, first of all, glamour is so fun. Evening gowns, hair, makeup, all of that is so fun. But you get to take something like that and combine it with something that's so necessary and so important. It's so fulfilling and so creative in all facets. I mean, like I said, to do this, you really have to love the work. You really have to love the mission. And I really do. And this has just been a fantastic experience for me.
I feel likewise, I feel like this whole 1 hour interview is like some sort of a TED talk for me when it comes to
A
environmental
TED Talk.
issues. Seriously, that's how I'm feeling right now. I am walking away from this interview with so many learnings about our environment just by listening to you and your advocacy. That's how impactful you are. And for sure, you will generate the same thing once you arrive in Florida next month. So, on that note, thank you so much. I have one more question. What do you hope to achieve with your candidacy? Having said everything, what do you hope to achieve with your candidacy here in Miss Earth USA?
Um, I'm kind of confused on what do you mean? Like, do I want to win? Do I hope I win?
No, yeah, just no. Apart from that, what do you hope to achieve with apart from winning, what do you hope to espouse, or what's your goal in wanting to win Miss Earth
Got it.
USA?
I understand. Well, the number one thing is I want to make a meaningful impact. That's been the most important thing to me since I became Miss South Carolina Earth is making sure that my efforts create true impact, something that can be seen, something that's really making a difference. And I plan on doing that through my advocacies and growing them to the national level and hopefully the international level. But I also have the goal is I really want to help improve the Miss Earth USA organization itself. It's an amazing organization, but I believe we should leave this planet better than we found it. And that's how I feel each queen should be. Each queen should leave the Miss Earth USA system a little bit better than they found it. They should work to grow it. They should work to grow the recognition of the name. Let more people know that we exist and what we're doing and the opportunities that they give to women and how they can get involved in all the many projects that all the women that participate in this competition are creating, because every single girl that is competing in January is a hardworking, intelligent woman. And I think that's something I want to see more people recognize and be aware of. I want to see a lot more people looking to the Miss Earth USA system for guidance and for role models and a lead on how to make our country and our world a more environmentally sustainable place.
No doubt. Everyone who's going to watch this interview will be so pumped up, inspired to do something for the environment. Seriously,
You
you
were so
know,
nice to me. Thank
no,
you.
seriously, this is my first time I'm walking away from an interview learning so much from my guests. Seriously, like, yesterday I went to a green restaurant, a green healthy restaurant, and a smoothie, an antioxidant smoothie, and they gave me a metal straw. And usually I wouldn't mind about it. I would just probably discard it in my kitchen, give it to someone else after washing it. Now I have to take care of it. Okay, this is really my way of protecting and of the environment. So, all these little things,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
that's the impact that you're giving to me right now as a as your interviewer, as a human being, as a daily consumer. Yeah, that's how impactful you are generating to me, and I'm not being kind to you. that's how you really are showing to a lot of people. Like what Lemony B is saying here as we end the interview. You are so well spoken, sending love and support.
Thank you so much. That is so kind of you to say. Lemony, did I say that right?
Yeah, I hope so.
I
Lemony.
hope so. I apologize if I said it wrong, but I really appreciate hearing that because I've really worked so hard. This is an opportunity I want more than anything. I've really put in the work, the research that I think it takes. And I'm so happy that you noticed that because the research and the knowledge, I think, is something that I really put in the forefront along with doing the work. I've noticed that the other queens that have been sent from Miss Earth USA to Miss Earth, they are queens that are intelligent. They know the
Yes.
information and they did the work. And of course, you want to take a nod from the queen that came before you because she is your role model. She is an example of the kind of woman that gets to have the opportunity to lead. And I noticed that in Marissa, I noticed that in Lindsay. And I'm just, I'm trying to kind of follow their lead and be like them in the ways that I've seen that inspired me so much. But of course, be my own person at the same time. But I think the knowledge is something that set them apart. And I wanted to make sure that, I'm going to be speaking with so many people. I want to have something, I want to give them something they can walk away from. Why listen to me talk if you aren't going to learn something new? If I'm just going to tell you the same old, it's so important that we're leading in education and in action.
True. True. I mean, for my part, all I can do is just, take action from what you said, even in my own little ways. That's how
Yes.
impactful you are. Yeah, that's one guy that you just scold about the environment, and hopefully you can get to spread more about it as you go on with your Miss Earth USA candidacy. Or thank you so much once again. So there ends my interview. I had such a blast really getting
Oh,
to
me
know you
too.
on a deeper level, on a more intellectual level. Thank you so, so much again. And virtual hugs and kisses all the way here from my office in Manila. Mwah.
Yes.
Take care.
Same to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Belated Merry Christmas, and I hope you have an amazing holiday season ahead of you.
Thank you. Same to you. And I hope you'll be watching in January.
Yes, through VIP Passion 3 live stream. Yes, and I'm glad that they're not charging us with anything for that.
Yes, it's totally free.
Yes, good luck. Good luck. I can't wait to see. Now that, now that I've gotten to know you on a deeper level, I can't wait to repost more of your pics. So make
Yeah.
sure you slay all your pics and
Yeah.
videos
Oh, I
next week.
appreciate that support so much. And hopefully one day we'll be able to meet in person when it's safe. And
Yes,
you
I
are
wonder
so
when will
fun.
that be. Oh, thank you so much. I really try to make my interviews light and fun. Like I really try to shine the light on you guys because this is really your moment to for most pageant fans to really get to know you. As you know, we're here in the Philippines, but Miss USA Earth USA is really getting more and more popular here because of the caliber of girls that you have been sending to Miss Earth. And if you will be the next in line, I really won't be surprised.
Oh, gosh.
Promise.
Fingers crossed. There's so many
Yes.
amazing women. It could be anyone, but of course, I'm really
Win
hoping.
or lose, you've already won so many hearts, including mine. Like wow, because probably your advocacy hits close to me because I love fashion, and I just really have to be mindful of everything that I purchase starting from now and be more discerning, do more research about it. Yeah, it's my first time someone has told me about it about sustainable. I love talking about sustainable fashion nowadays. Apart from it's the in thing to talk about, especially in the realm of pageantry. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm sleeping tonight with so many new things in my head, which I hopefully can share to my friends
That makes me so
just
happy.
by watching this interview again.
Say what?
Just by watching this interview again.
Yeah. Absolutely. That means so much to me. It really does. I think everybody loves to have their hard work noticed. And it really means a lot to me that you noticed that and that you said that. And you're a fantastic interviewer. I really had so much fun. You have such a great personality. I really hope that we can stay friends after this interview. Stay in
Yeah,
touch.
Yes, yes. Hopefully, let's keep in touch. Okay. I hope you'll be styled well for the pageant. Okay. You can. You're already good with the interview. Now, mind. No, you have to take notice or pay attention to your styling. So, because in order for you to get to the final Q&A, you really have to impress us physically. So, I hope you'll be styled perfectly for the finals night
I
or
will
the
do.
prelims.
I am doing my best. So I don't have the most money in the world, but like I said, innovation, creativity can accomplish a lot. And I think you'll love my outfit choices. I was very meticulous about them.
I'll take that. I'll take what you said. All right. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you have in store for us soon. So, all right, have a great day ahead of you there and good morning. Mwah.
Thank you. Thank you. You as well.
Belated Merry Christmas. Bye.
Bye.